Hello, everyone. My guest today is John Bura. John is a prolific entrepreneur who started coding in 1997 and teaching in 2002. He has produced over 40 apps and games. John is a lead developer and CEO of a highly successful e-learning company called Mammoth Interactive. Mammoth Interactive produces online degrees and courses primarily on programming and technology. 1 million students and growing have enrolled in his online school since inception in 2011. Some of Mammoth's courses have been even featured at Harvard. John's company has also produced Xbox 360, iPhone and iPad games in addition to several iPhone, iPad, PC and Mac apps. Some of these apps have even reached #1 in the App Store. Recently, Nickelodeon has featured a game produced by Mammoth Interactive. John has 2 kids and likes to play ultimate frisbee, cycle and ski during his spare time. John, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to know if we can define easily or in simple terms e-learning so that our audience understands a bit more what we mean by e-learning, because we also have remote learning, distance learning. What's the key differences between e-learning and the other forms of learning?
Yeah, so I think, remote learning, like the things that you mentioned are probably, they're very similar. But basically, what we've done for a long, long time at Mammoth since 2011, is that we've been producing online courses. And these courses you can take whenever you want, as much as you want. And the reason why that I did that in the first place is that I needed to upskill, a few years prior to make all those iPhone and iPad apps that, that you mentioned there. That was actually a long time ago. That was like 2009, 2010, 2011, right? But yeah, so in order to get that, I needed to upskill. And I'm like, well, there wasn't any courses, like literally I couldn't go to a university to do it. So there was a company called 3D Buzz that had a bunch of tutorials on Xbox 360 games and iPad and stuff. And I could basically get the videos. I could watch them at like 2 times the speed, and it was a massive productivity thing, right? And that's what we find a lot of people doing today. It's like, you watch YouTube, and maybe some of you are listening to this on 2 times the speed. You're trying to get it done as quickly as possible, right? And anyway, but yes, but in answer to your question, so what we've seen, especially since the pandemic, is that people want to basically learn on their own time whenever they want. And people have been doing this, I started doing this in the mid 2000s when I found out about online learning. I'm like, wow. And I was actually in university at the time. And I'm like, whoa, this is so cool. Right. It's basically, I would call what I do mostly when I make courses for people to consume on their own time, on their own demand.
Okay. That's pretty cool. And so basically, you thought about e-learning, like using the internet to deliver those courses. And you've been pretty much a pioneer in that, with that regards, because you started early as 2009, you said?
So my first course was in 2011, but I was a teacher prior to that. Okay. And what was interesting is that when I was making all the iPhone and iPad games, I'd show it to people and they're like, well, that's cool, but how did you do that? They didn't care about the apps at all. They just cared about how I could do that. Now remember, if you go back to that time, there was a gold rush, okay? And there was several things I've learned in that little time. Whenever there's a gold rush in tech, you have an opportunity to make it, or you have an opportunity to even pivot your career. And so the latest iteration is generative AI, right? So ChatGPT, all this stuff. So if you're in your career, or you're trying to produce something and you just want to kind of pivot a little bit, when you pivot towards those buzzwords, it really does make a difference, right? So I learned that really early on.
Okay. And how did the idea for your e-learning platform come about? So I understand you started doing it mainly to teach others because you were producing apps primarily. But then how did you bridge the gap between doing this and then launching a full-fledged company solely focused on delivering e-learning?
So it was actually quite funny. I really wanted to pivot into complete software development, but this was during 2008 to 2012, really. And like that during the global financial crisis, it was really hard to start a business. Let's put it that way. So I had a lot of trouble. And then, I remember coming up on this site called Udemy at the time on Groupon. And I'm like, what is this? Courses on iPhone. Well, that's kind of interesting. So I click on it. I click on Udemy. I make this massive games course. I get in touch with the people at Udemy, and I was one of the first people on Udemy. And so after that, and it was actually kind of funny. I was down to my last dollar, right before, like I was baking stuff, and then it's just like, I was down to my last dollar, and then I got on Boxing Day, there was a big sale. And if you don't know what Boxing Day is, the day after Christmas in
26th of December.
Countries, right? So anyway, so on Boxing Day, I open up my sales reports, and it's like literally thousands of dollars. And I'm like, yes. And I was this close to getting myself a job, right? And it's actually really funny because, and from there, like I had known how to hustle, I know how to produce things, and I know how to teach. So by coding and teaching and hustling and all those kind of three things together, I was able to produce a ton of content the following year. Now, what's interesting about that following year is that I was actually offered a really good job that was exactly the same amount as what I was making on Udemy at the time. And I declined the job because I'm like, you know what? No, I think I can do this. Let's do it. So the short answer is that it started with one course. And so oftentimes for young entrepreneurs or starting entrepreneurs, it's really, really hard. And then you get a break. And when you get that break, you have to double down, triple down on that break, and then go for it. And I had known that. And Udemy was my big break. And from there, it's all history.
Absolutely. Looks like a very interesting success story. Now, mentioning Udemy, by the way, do sites like Udemy or others as well, like I think there's one called Linda, I don't know if it's still around, do they constitute like competition to your site, to your business?
So that's an interesting thing. So because I started so many moons ago, right? Yeah. The e-learning industry always changes. So remember, Udemy was a startup. It had like $2 million in funding at the time. And now it's a stock, it IPO'd, it's a public company, and now it makes, I think, a ton of money. So does it work with competition to my site? In some ways, yes. Udemy and Skillshare and all those companies really want to be like a Netflix, like a single house company. When Udemy started, I thought it was going to be like the App Store. And that's why I was so excited about it, right? That's why I tripled down. It's like, hey, look, this is the App Store of online courses. People are going to go nuts for this. But the people and the investors didn't want to do that. Now, again, Steam, for example, makes reportedly $10 billion a year. And I think Udemy could do the same, but they really don't want to do that. So they just want to sell subscriptions. So in short answer, yes, they are in a little bit of competition, but I still upload a few courses to Udemy now and then. And I actually get a lot of business because I upload courses on Udemy. I actually make more uploading my courses to Udemy and people saying, hey, look, can you do a corporate boot camp for me? Which is what our main focus is this year. So we deliver the e-learning courses, but we also deliver corporate training. So the generative AI is a big one. I have actually a meeting literally 30 minutes after we end this call here for that. Interesting. That exact same thing, right? Cool. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is that I still use them and I still gain business.
And you can generate leads from them.
Exactly.
Understood. All right. With your background in teaching since 2002, how have you seen the education sector evolve over the years? And what do you think are the key driving forces behind e-learning? Is it like because it's affordable or because people around the world can access a course anywhere, anytime?
Yeah, I would say it's both of those things, right? So one of the things I noticed right away is again, one, I couldn't find the content. Now that was 2009. That was a long time ago. Nowadays, there's a lot of these, colleges and universities, they have this content. In fact, years ago, I was on a college board for a game college. I said, look, we should do all these 4 things to make your college competitive. And everyone's like, yes, let's do all those things. And then 4 years later, those things came into effect, right? So the problem with post-secondary education is that it can take a long time. And in the world of, tech, things just evolve too quickly for them to adapt. And frankly, that's why I'm still in business is because if you're, let's say, a 3rd-year computer science major and you need to know the latest version of Python and generative AI and how the API interacts, well, you're going to spend anywhere between $10 and $100 for my bundle of courses because there's so much value in there that you can even use in your degree. And, and that's just kind of the reality of things, the way things are.
Okay. Traditional degrees are still valued. But the landscape is indeed changing, as you just said. How do you see the future of credentials in the context of e-learning? And how can online certifications gain broader recognition?
Absolutely. So I should also mention, I do run an e-learning company, but I do have utmost respect for our education system. In fact, it's arguably one of the best things we've done is public education, because like it really has worked. And I do think that if you're, let's say, 18 or 19 coming out of high school, you should probably go. You know, you're not ready for the world.
To uni, yeah.
Yeah, right. You should go to university. You should at least go to a 2-year college, or something. You need to do something else. You know, there's 2 reasons for that. First, the world is more technical than it was, let's say, 50 or 100 years ago, right? And you just need to be in school longer. That's just the reality of it. But so you should pick something that you can apply to. And the best 4-year degrees that, like, I get this question asked every single time I'm at a meetup or something. It's like, what should I do? Well, if you can go to a 4-year degree where you can get skills training as well, that's the best area you can do. But you have to remember that once you graduate, you still have to learn. Even when you're 22 and you graduated your 4-year degree, or you're 24 and you graduated your master's degree, you still have to learn, right? Which is where my courses frankly come in, right? Okay. So I'm learning all the time. Like, I spend at least an hour a day just like trying to learn something new, right? And so I always tell my employees that success is a wheel. You have to constantly be learning and new things if you want a career, right? If you don't, you can fall off that wheel and, well, you might get left behind.
Yeah, for sure. Now, with regards to accreditation, like your courses, the courses that you deliver, do you back them up with a third-party accreditation or big brand name like, I don't know, Google or Microsoft, or do you sell your own brand standalone? How does this work? Does this add a level of credibility to your offering?
Okay, so there's a couple things. So what we've done is we're actually starting to offer more of those certification courses like AWS, Azure, and then Google Cloud, and all those certifications as well. Those are pretty standard in the industry, right? So you take a course, you give a practice test, and then you write the certification here. Now, what's interesting about coding is that the best thing that you can do is have a really good portfolio. Okay, because, you know, when I hire a coder, or I'm like, what is in your portfolio? I want to see your GitHub. I want to see the way you do things. And, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like if you're a soccer star, right? You can't become, or a football, depending on where you are in the world, right? So
soccer is now, I think, a worldwide
is it now?
term, right? Yeah. Increasingly,
So anyway, if you're a soccer star, you can't just write a multiple choice test and show up to the game. Like, that doesn't work like that. And so you want to think of your career kind of like sports as well. You practice, you play. And then in coding, very specifically, is like that. You learn, you build some projects, and then you basically do these projects, and that's part of your portfolio. Now, having said that, you know, maybe in the future, I was thinking, and I think about this all the time, that we'll have some kind of certification like the Mammoth certification, the Mammoth Python certification, which will be a little bit more in depth than what we currently do now. You do get a certificate for passing the course, but the majority of people who take our e-learning courses do it for the portfolio. The better your portfolio, the better chance you have of getting a job. Got it.
Okay, how effective do you think gamification is in enhancing the learning experience? We hear all about introducing the gaming aspect or the gamification aspect in delivering education in general. Does this work online as well, and how effective is it?
Well, I think it's really effective, but you'll find that, like, for example, like there's a lot of companies that just don't implement it at all, and I am boggled. I just don't know why they don't do it, because it sounds like such an easy thing to do. Everyone loves getting that achievement just for watching 100 minutes of tutorials. Who doesn't like that stuff, right? Yeah. And I have a 7-year-old, and she loves, like, when she gets like a badge for just like something, it's great. And so I think it's really important. For whatever reason, a lot of these e-learning companies don't think it's important. I don't know why. You'll have to ask them.
All right. Just a question. You mentioned earlier that, times are changing, and now there's AI, and increasingly the landscape of coding in general is changing. And I understand that you deliver mostly courses that are related to coding and programming. Do you think that the business or the employment of being a developer is under threat currently because you have all those AI tools that can code on your behalf?
Yes. So if you've ever tried to code anything from scratch using nothing but ChatGPT, you'll soon realize that it doesn't quite work. You can't just push a button and out comes this multi-million-dollar software as a service application, right? Yeah. It doesn't work like that. Now, in terms of ChatGPT, anyone who's doing any kind of knowledge work, there's a certain level of, I don't want to, existential doom, I guess, that everyone has. But like, I don't think it's not necessarily that bad. But here's what I think is going to happen. The quality of everything is going to go up. Okay.
Go up. Okay.
Yeah. The quality. So the quality of the tutorials are going to go up. They're going to be more effective. And essentially, it's going to take the same amount of hours, like human hours, to produce. So I just think the quality of everything is going to go up. Okay. To a certain extent, ChatGPT is solving yesterday's problems, not tomorrow's problems. But having said that, I definitely find myself going into ChatGPT much more than I do with Google. So in that particular instance, I could see Google's, percentage go down a bit, whereas I'm spending more time in ChatGPT, and I'm sure some of our students spend time in ChatGPT as well. But the point is that if you're going to be in e-learning and education, you have to find another reason for people to take your course, and that can be a community. Like a community can be way better than ChatGPT. You can have these projects, and a lot of what we do is we try to find what the biggest trend of what's going on, and then put that into a project so you can immediately use that in your resume or portfolio or your job interview, or not a job interview, but like your performance review. And if you use your performance review, chances are you'll probably get that promotion over someone who didn't do that stuff in the last quarter or whatever. Got
it. So you think that the tech or the job description of being a programmer is here to stay, but it's going to transform. It's going to change a little bit over time. That's what you foresee.
Absolutely. And I guess one side note to that is that tech did kind of overhire in the last 3 years. So all the layoffs are probably more cyclical rather than, demand-wise. The other thing, the biggest and most bearish thing for tech and coders specifically is a reduction in architecture complexity. Right. Okay. So if sites want to look like Craigslist or, if that's what people want to do, then that's a big problem. But I don't see that happening. As technology gets more complex, it requires more people to maintain it.
Absolutely. But maybe the set of skills is going to change, and it'll be AI is going to play a big part in that, I would guess. Like being AI, how can I say, understanding how AI works and how to leverage AI and all these new emerging fields like prompt engineering and all that, I think are going to be skills highly in demand in the near future.
I'm glad you brought up prompt engineering because it's now a whole new field. Okay? So if we go back to, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago, Photoshop wasn't really a thing, right? I think Photoshop came out I can't remember when, but before there was, if you wanted to do something on the computer, you had to become a graphic designer. And that wasn't a role, right? Like a computer graphic designer. It was a role without computers. But now that person interfacing with the graphic design on the computer was now a new job, right? The same thing is happening with prompt engineering. I can tell you that when I'm doing prompts and when I'm doing blog posts or social media posts in ChatGPT, the prompt really matters, right? And and I spend a lot of time trying to craft these prompts. And then also companies are really interested in having us teach them how to do that because you can just throw up any kind of words onto ChatGPT and it's going to give you, a kind of a half, not a very good response, right? But if you really craft your prompts, and that's going to be a whole person's job in the future, right? So oftentimes with these new technologies, yes, some other jobs might not be around, but there's always new ones. And that's also why you have to constantly train and constantly evolve your skills because, before 2 years ago, prompt engineer was not really a word. Now it is. And if you say that you're a prompt engineer and you have a really good portfolio, then you might get hired as one.
Yes, absolutely. I think with all those AI tools like ChatGPT, the quality of the output is as good as the quality of the input. So it's a very promising, I think, sector that is currently booming. I guess prompt engineering. Do you have to be a programmer to become a prompt engineer, or anyone can become a prompt engineer?
Yeah. So what's interesting, it depends what you're doing with it first. Now, surprisingly, people that have really good command of languages are really good. So like an English degree, like if I were to, this is just a side, but if I would always hire the top 1% of any field. It doesn't matter what you studied for, but like people who have a really good command, in logic and language, so like maybe a philosophy degree or an English degree, might actually be amazing prompt engineers. So
wow, interesting.
if you studied that in school, now's your chance to basically get a whole new skill set for yourself. Okay.
And a part of, offering courses in AI, how do you see AI changing e-learning itself? Like, is it actually affecting the industry or changing how you deliver courses maybe, or how you probably suggest courses to learners?
Yeah, so that's interesting you mentioned suggestions, because like oftentimes people know what they want, right? They're like, and oftentimes it's like, well, how do I buy a Lambo as soon as possible, right? But sometimes that's the motivation, which is not the best motivation in the world.
I have the same one.
Right.
We share this.
So some people have, it's like, okay, it's like the crypto crowd is very much into that, right? So anyway, so they usually have an idea what they want. And so course suggestions is actually an interesting one. A lot of, I would... Udemy, I think, had that thing where they used AI to suggest courses.
Recommender systems. And
like recommender systems, right? But the big thing that I see AI changing is actually, believe it or not, in the production quality, right? So as soon as Midjourney, So this is like, what we do is we use our images or make our images in Midjourney. And those images are way better than what we could have done before, right? And we have more control over what they are. So all of our marketing is done with Midjourney now. And then we can put those into courses and the videos, and you can use things to animate them. So before, let's say 5 years ago, you'd have a simple PowerPoint course, right? Now you can have an animated background, some animated text, and all these AI tools are just making it more engaging. And that's what I really say, is that I don't think people are going to, I don't think it's going to really cause too many job losses. It's just going to up the quality, and people are just going to be doing something a little bit different with their time. Like, for example, my video editor used to do everything in Premiere, but then there are tools, those AI tools that you can use that take the same amount of time, but the quality is like 10 times of what one person could do. So that's the kind of thing that I really see AI changing.
Okay. And when you generate content for your courses using AI, is there a risk of duplication, like having that content created by somebody else using the same tool and then having those same elements somewhere else? I always had that question, or it's always unique to you. It's going to be a unique output that you'll get.
So this is a very big thing in generative AI, right? And you have to be very careful. We'll use ChatGPT because it's the one people know the most. So ChatGPT will scrape from the internet. And what you can actually do is use the Grammarly plagiarism detector. And that will, and it's really good.
Or Copyscape. I don't know if you know that tool.
I haven't heard that one, but I'll definitely check it out though. So basically the Grammarly one will say, okay, look, this sentence was pulled from this site. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's really good. So you say, okay, well, you have to rewrite that sentence, okay? And usually if it hasn't been detected by the Grammarly one, most likely it hasn't been done before. But then we also run into this other issue, whereas what happens if I've been posting blogs on ChatGPT on this particular topic for the last for the last year or so, and then ChatGPT reads the blog that it wrote, right? So, and then it's like, okay, well, what's happening here? So there's a little bit of a gray area around this. And the answer is that not everyone knows the exact answer. It's a bit of a fog, I guess, if you will. But the short of it is, as long as, and even when I do stuff in ChatGPT, I still find that I have to tweak it a lot, right?
For sure.
Yeah, like it's not, again, we are so far away from, here's a course, right? Give me a course on Python. Push a button. Oh, there we go. Okay. 6 figures in revenue, passive. Like we're so far away from that.
Okay. But it's evolving very rapidly over the past 2 years now.
Absolutely.
Not even 2 years. It's been a year that ChatGPT has been launched, right? But I guess to the public. Many companies or people within the AI field have probably been exposed to something similar prior to 2023, but it is changing very fast. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about accessibility. Accessibility is a crucial aspect nowadays in everything you do online. How can e-learning platforms address accessibility challenges in tech education or in education in general?
Yeah, I mean, so the best thing, one of the best things that Udemy has ever done is the $10 course. I mean, the value you get for $10, and I think it's changed now. I think the top courses are maybe 20, 25. And then, but that is such an amazing value. Like a lot of our bundles go from anywhere between $30 and $99, right?
Okay.
Massive. Yeah. Massive deal, right?
Anybody can afford them.
Yeah, right. I mean, I understand that $99 might be a lot to some, in depending on where you're from. But there are other options. And for me personally, I had next to no money, and I think I spent $200 on the site 3D Buzz, which was back in 2009.
Yeah.
Right. And it was just so invaluable. Now, again, if depending on where you are, school might be really expensive. Okay, and the cost benefit analysis of some of this stuff is really good. So that's really good. And the other thing is all these creators have YouTube channels. You can always look at the YouTube stuff, which is free, and you can get quite a bit there too. So, it used to be there wasn't enough tools. Now there's no excuse not to know, right?
Yes.
If there's absolute, if you don't know something, you need to know it. You need to take the time to do it, which is the hardest part, really. Attention is actually, in terms of the hardest thing to do now, is finding the time and the attention to do something.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what about people who have certain disability? If they want to educate themselves, are there features in those courses nowadays delivered online that allow for diverse type of learners to take those courses despite their let's call them disabilities or Sure. So the good news is that just a side note, as every day or every year that goes by, there's more infrastructure that gets added to the internet. It gets easier to sell things. It gets easier to do things. So the way I like to think of it is think of a city in 1970, like a picture, and then a picture of it today. It's completely different. The internet is kind of like that too. And so as things get easier and cheaper, right, you get these companies that are putting out very niche types of content. So there are I know of several sites that are specifically for autism, right? So if you're divergent, right? this was not really possible 10 years ago. You would have to build your own LMS by yourself. But now you can just get one for $30 a month or even free and test it out. And then if you have that knowledge, you can make the videos and you can make them engaging enough to do. So in terms of accessibility, as everything gets better and better every year, and I expect more people to learn. Okay, regardless of where they are in life or how they are built. Cool. You mentioned earlier that you started as an app producer, or app programmer. And I also read in your biography that several of your apps have reached #1 positions on the stores. Can you share some of the secrets that can help a mobile app reach the top position on app stores? Is there a secret formula?
Sure. So so I think I need to update that particular bio because this was from 2009, 2010. And the reason why they went to #1.
Things have changed since, but
things have changed very much in the App Store. So, this is when the App Store was really, really young.
Yes.
And then, it was #1 and then it would be in the Netherlands or something like that. Right.
But this is still good.
Though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the relevant information that I can tell you about this is you always have to look at the trends of what's going on. So one of the more successful apps I had was called Fishing with My Dad, right? And it was just a fishing game. And I released it on Father's Day. Okay.
Interesting.
So,
so timing plays a role as well.
Timing is the most important thing.
Really?
Right?
Okay.
Oh yeah. So you can. Okay. And so I've actually noticed this in my business. Sometimes I've been too early. and it hasn't been good. And sometimes I've been too late, also not good. But sometimes when you just get that right timing, everything changes. Okay. And you can see this a lot with businesses too. Timing is probably the number one thing. But when you're into content production, which is what we do really well, is that you want to constantly be producing. Okay, it's something that you just do. So think of, we've all probably had jobs where, like, I worked at Subway when I was a teenager. So like, you show up to work, you build sandwiches, you go home, right? You have to think of your content thing like that too. You show up to work, you build content as like all day, every day, because that's what you do, right? That's what you'd be doing at another job, right? So you should do it at your own job as well. So you're constantly producing as much content as possible, and you always have to look at the trends. When I do a project, and we do this probably every quarter, we looked at what went right, what went wrong, and how to do it better. And I also have a 10-10-10 rule, okay? For every project that you do, the next project you have to do 10% better, 10% faster, and make 10% more money. The last one is the hardest one. It's the hardest. It's not really in your control in some cases, but the first two are. So you can always do a better job, and you can always do it faster. And those two things, if you know how to do it, in 3 years, you'll be way ahead of the pack.
That's really cool insights and tips. Thank you very much. I'm sure the audience will appreciate. And you reminded me a little bit. I mean, it's obvious because you probably are a programmer by education. So it's a little bit how the process of how you release code, right? Like you build, you test, and then you release, and then you reiterate the process until you refine whatever you're coding, whether it's an app or a website or a software, right? It's the same mindset, like constant improvement. Yeah.
The only difference is that you have to release something, right? So whether it's a YouTube video or a game, and sometimes you have to abandon ideas. Now, before I made it on the App Store, and I say made it very loosely because I still wasn't making that much money. This was at the time where everything was free, and you had to get like a gajillion downloads to do anything, and people didn't even want to spend $1 in your app, right? So, and that's another thing that's changed. Actually, people have wanted to pay more for digital goods, which is a trend that's great for me. But before that, I had like 3 big Xbox games that I just abandoned, and I learned it the hard way. Probably about 1.5 years worth of my life of just nothing. Okay. And it was rough, right? So you have to know when to abandon a project too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Now, what do you believe are key factors that have contributed to your success, a part of the tips that you shared? And how can e-learning entrepreneur, specifically e-learning entrepreneur, can apply these lessons in their own e-learning ventures?
Sure. So like I mentioned, if you're into content production, you have to do it at a regular interval. Now, for YouTube, it's you want to do quality over quantity. But what I've found, at least with e-learning, is you want to produce as much good content as you possibly can. Okay. But in terms of what makes me successful is the thing that I do is I constantly work. Okay. And that may seem silly, but like some people, they'll work 2 months and then they'll take 8 months off, right? You can't really do that.
Doesn't work.
It doesn't
long
work.
term.
Yeah. For me personally, I need to take more time off in some cases. Like this year, I took like a week and a half off it at Christmas. It was amazing. I'm going to do more of that because I felt so refreshed, right? You can get burnt out, which is another thing. But yeah, so that's probably one thing. And the other thing that is kind of just inherently to me is I'm a very optimistic person, and that's a trait that entrepreneurs have, is they're overly optimistic.
Yes.
And but at the same time though, there's been so many times over the last 14 years where it's been like, this is a crushing blow to my business, and what am I going to do? Right. And I just have to sit back, and you have to be stoic about it, which is the hardest thing in the world. It's actually easy if you work by yourself.
Yes.
Because, you don't have to show the world if you're upset, right? Yes. But it's really hard to be stoic about this stuff. And there's been so many things in the e-learning industry that has like completely changed. And I'm like, I don't think it's a good idea. And this might ruin me. I might have to, shut down the business, etc. But you have to be stoic, and it takes time and patience. But you'll get there if you work on it. That's another thing that you have to work on, is so just like
persistence, basically.
Persistence is a good word of saying it. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I heard the same advice from other entrepreneurs as well. Like they always mention, like, just keep at it, and persistence will get you eventually where you want to go. It's not like trying once or twice, that's not enough. You have to consistently try and fail, and then eventually you succeed.
Yep. And sometimes, if like one step to the right of what you're doing will make it really will blow up. So before Udemy, I actually made like a bunch, like a course, and I put it on this site that gave you better ads revenue than YouTube. And I made like $20, right? And I'm like, what? I spent so much time in that, right?
Yes.
But then I got onto Udemy, and then, the rest is history. So like just that one little step of just putting it on this new platform made it for me, right? And that can happen to you. So you also have to try new things. And this is, even if you have an established business, you should try new things, because the market can change and you can go out of business. And I've seen this happen to, lots of people, unfortunately.
I see. Now, with regards to your audience, your target audience, or let's call them your target customers, are they typically individuals or rather companies that enroll their employees to take your courses? How does it work in reality?
So what we've been doing for the last 6 months is that we've noticed that companies have been asking us more than usual. For most of what we've done, it's been B2C, business to consumer. But right now, we're getting a lot of demand for our boot camps. And these are generative AI boot camps. We also have tech boot camps for they're called tech generalist. That's a new big buzzword now. And so if you're a company and you care about productivity, you're going to teach people just basic technology skills so they can kind of fix it themselves. Right. And believe me, I've had to do this at some companies, and they really need this. Right. So, so the short answer is that in the future, we're definitely going more the B2B route here. But a lot of consumers still buy it. What's interesting is that people buy our courses to succeed in their business. And then we go to the businesses and say, hey, look, all these people bought the course out of pocket. Why don't we upskill your entire team? Right. They thought it was useful. So now, because that's mostly why people buy our courses, is to, say, hey, look, I built a large language learning model at their next performance review. Did Jimmy do that? No. So you should give me the promotion instead of Jimmy. Right. Like that's why a lot of people are buying the courses.
Okay. And you delivered those boot camps fully online, or you also offer on-premise trainings?
So it's mostly online. The on-premise training, I mean, I did like a couple of those, like, I don't know, 5
in the past, I guess.
Yeah, in the past. Yes. In the past, right? So I used to do those in the past, but ever since, the pandemic, people just want to do it online. And we also we can also make custom courses for companies. So like a lot of people, like a lot of the e-learning stuff that you see is geared towards consumers, and it's geared towards like the edge cases are kind of not in there, right? So it's like there's a certain amount that like a company might need, and we get brought in to make that content for them, because they just can't find a course on it, right?
Now you mentioned like the vast majority of your clients are B2C, but you're getting increasingly B2B inquiries. My question is, when you're trying to market an online course to B2C, isn't it hard to market that given the level of the competition? What typically do you do? Which channels have worked for you, and how do you go about, standing out in the crowd?
Right. So if you're just starting out, the best way you can do it is start a YouTube channel. And I would actually start 2 YouTube channels. Okay.
2.
So, 2. One is in your industry. Okay. So let's just use generative AI, for example. So you release 1 to 2 really high polished videos about generative AI and about where it's going per month. Okay. You have a link to a free course in your description, and you'll get leads from that. Okay. And then the other YouTube channel is your course content. It would be samples of your course.
Okay, got it.
And so it's best to keep those 2 separate, because the course content, like depending on how much you make, right? You can upload a video a day to that, right?
If you have a history of content,
exactly. You can just upload a video, or you can upload half a video. Right. So the rest of the videos in the course, buy it now.
Okay.
Or whatever. Right. So like you can also do that. And it's best to do those separate, because One is more for like, if you can make it entertaining, it's even better. Like if you're funny, I'm not the funniest person, right? But if you can make it entertaining or something like that, right? That's what YouTube channel 1 is for. YouTube channel 2 is just for your courses. Okay. And then with both of them, you add free courses that you want to sign up for. And then it should, now if you do that, it might not happen tomorrow, but in 6 months, you'll probably have at least a few hundred leads, I would say.
Okay.
Right? You have to share those videos everywhere, and it's a lot of work, but it's getting harder, the B2C. I just happen to have a massive list, and my links are everywhere, and my blog posts are everywhere. So it's a little easier for me because I've been around for so long.
Yeah, for sure. Do you use also paid media, like paid ads on online?
Yeah, so a lot of these places, like you mentioned, the App Store, have become pay to play. And so, even if you put in $10 to an ad on YouTube every month, every week, that will help you out.
Okay. Do you also rely on SEO?
Absolutely.
You do.
You also want to be posting one blog post a week on your website.
So you do like a full-fledged content marketing strategy or digital marketing. You implement a full-fledged digital strategy to actually reach out to your audience. You don't rely on one or two things.
No, you have to have them. You have to be heard.
Yes,
to do that,
sure.
You have to have a lot of things. So go ahead.
Sure. The good thing, I guess, about working with companies on the flip side is that if you sign one contract, you are signing up like, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 employees or 30 people at the same time. So that's the benefit. And you get a bigger ticket usually, right?
Yes.
This is kind of the advantage. B2C is harder to get probably clients, but at the same time, it's a volumes game, right? So you need to get many individual clients to be able to make up for the revenue, right?
Right. Now, the flip side, though, is that B2C has a really long sales cycle, right? So like if you talk to a company today, it could be 6 months before you land that deal.
B2B, right? You mean? Okay, got it.
So yeah, B2B.
Yes. You're right.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
The B2C. So the thing that, again, if you use that formula that I showed you, where you have two YouTube channels, you'll probably get a lot more success early on. And the reason for that is that like you'll get people coming into your course and buying something. And then once you do, ask them what you like about it, and really pamper your first 10 sales.
Yes.
And then if you pamper them, then it's easy after that.
Okay. Interesting. What about social media in general? Do you rely on social media to market your courses, like Facebook, TikTok? I mean, these days TikTok is killing it. Is it a good platform to market e-courses, online courses as well?
So it's probably better to. The short answer is yes. I don't do TikTok that much. I don't do social media that much.
Okay.
But yes, the answer is if you like making TikTok videos, I would do it. It's just for me personally. So I think I might start a TikTok. If a big trend comes around, that's when you start the TikTok, and you just make your name the whatever it is. So if, like crypto might boom later this year. So you make nothing and you just talk about that one topic. Okay.
Like you go niche.
Yes.
Okay.
But the best thing is that, like, for example, there are different niches, right? Like tech is a niche, but it's a big one, right?
And then you have sub niches underneath, right?
Exactly. So, if you like, you'll notice that the biggest YouTube channels focus on the really big ones, right? Like, I'm a tech channel, but if I'm an Apple channel, okay, that's not going to be as big as the tech channel, right?
Okay.
If I'm only focused on iPhones, that's even smaller, but it's still good to do that, because if you like the iPhone and you want to talk about the iPhone all day, every day, that's another thing, is your YouTube channel doesn't necessarily have to relate to your courses. It should, but like if you want to talk about iPhones all day, every day, and iPhone news, just start that channel, right? You can always do another channel, right? And this is like a lot of the big people have like multiple channels, but anyway, if you want to, like, with YouTube, there's nothing wrong with fame, right? The more views you get, and if that means talking about just the iPhone all day, every day, then do it.
Got it. One thing regarding YouTube, I've been reading recently that a lot of people are quitting YouTube because the views or the exposure that they're getting is lower these days. The algorithm has changed, and probably there's a lot of content, and it's overcrowded. What is your take on that?
Yeah, so a lot of the people, I've seen those videos as well. A lot of these people have been doing it for a long time. And I can tell you that it can get grueling to be these people, to be that top YouTuber. Like, you got to remember, if you're the top YouTuber, there's like literally thousands of people that want to be in your spot. Yeah. So it's like, as we talked about, success is a wheel. That hamster wheel is going real fast. And you have to do that. So I think a lot of these people are burnt out. Okay. But yes, it also has changed, right? TikTok has eaten into it. But everyone's trying to grab attention, right? That's like, if you go to Netflix, the board meetings of Netflix or any of these companies, it's like, how can we grab more people's attention? And so, it's not only the fact that the platforms are changing, but people's tastes change as well, right? Absolutely. So it's, if I had a channel that I started in 2009, it might not be as relevant as it is today. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go do something else. I'm done.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah, I see what you mean. So topics and tendencies have changed, but also probably, as you said, attention spans as well. I mean, nowadays it's all about short videos everywhere, even on YouTube. Now they have those short YouTube shorts, and it looks like people have the new tendencies to consume short form videos and short content rather than long videos. And I guess TikTok is doing it really well.
Absolutely. In fact, we just did a company that wanted micro courses. So they're kind of like TikTok.
Is there such a thing?
Micro courses. This is the big this is the big buzzword in eLearning now. Micro courses. So it's, you take like a topic and it's maybe 10 or 15 minutes broken up into 10 to 15 videos. Wow. All built in a way that is supposed to increase productivity. So that's something that we've noticed. In fact, we have, well, at least we're talks with some companies that say we have a bunch of content and we need this content in microlearning courses.
Wow.
That's a big challenge, because like it's like a 15-hour course. How are we going to do that, right? But that's a different design. That's a different topic. It's a design challenge.
It's a different problem. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Final question, and maybe we can end on that. What's on the horizon for Mammoth Interactive? Are there any exciting projects or developments that you can give us a sneak peek into?
Sure. There's so much going on. So, I mean, I always try to look forward to the future. But the big thing now is that we are doing a lot of these corporate boot camps. Okay. And that's the big thing that we've seen interest in. So I don't want to say pivot, because pivot means the other thing's not doing very well, right? So, but we're not, so we're just adding it to our current B2C lineup. So we're doing lots of those. We're getting lots of interest in that. But we're also building our own LMS. And this LMS, it's going to be really good.
That's interesting. So you're building it from the ground up, or you're using a core engine?
Yeah, so we built it from the ground up, and it has it's going to have a lot of AI features in it. And
interesting.
Yeah, and so we're thinking maybe Q2 or 3 next year, we're going to let other people sign up to the LMS as well. Oh, wow. We're going to launch it on our own site first. Yes. And then if you check back to mammothinteractive.com, January 1st, 2025, there's going to be something really big. I don't want to talk about it yet, but it's going to be big. Let's put it that way.
Sounds very exciting, really. So you're thinking of launching a SaaS, like a software as a service solution with your LMS?
Absolutely. And so this is going to be like Teachable or Thinkific, except it's going to be our thing.
Okay, wow.
It's going to be really good, right? There's going to be so many features that you wish you had in an LMS. I don't know why Thinkific or Teachable doesn't have them. It boggles my mind why some of these features don't exist. But you'll be able to do it, and it's going to be awesome.
Well, looking forward then. Great. Any final words?
Wow, this was a good interview. So
it was.
Yeah, absolutely. So also, if you want to check us out on Twitter, it's at Mammoth Company. You can go to mammothinteractive.com. You can sign up for a free course. And if you're from a company, you can email me at johnbura@mammothinteractive.com, and we can set up a meeting, and I can show you how to boost productivity, because that's really the name of these. What these boot camps are designed to do is to boost productivity within your current teams.
Perfect. Well, John, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. And very excited for what's in the future for Mammoth. And hope we'll connect soon again.
Absolutely. It was wonderful to be here.
Thank you very much. Take care. Have a good one.